Welcome to our new series, which focuses on going more in depth into the origins of heroes and villains. Today we're going to discuss the origins of Scott Lang, one of the two Ant-Mans that have been in the history of Marvel Comics. Now, this original comic came out in Marvel Premiere number 47 in 1979, and it shows that Hank Pym retired the original Ant-Man costume when he went off to be the hero known as Yellow Jacket, and this new story follows the new Ant-Man, Scott Lang. Now, the story of our hero begins on the day that he gets out of prison. We don't know what he originally did to get into prison, but they do say he had something to do with burglary. Now, he was known for his technical expertise while in prison, and he went off to work for Stark Industries as a security designer. Well, Tony was impressed and everything was looking good for Scott, but that's when things took a dark turn. His entire world was about his daughter, and she was diagnosed with a rare inoperable condition, and the hospital bills began to overtake Scott, and he began to consider going back to the life of crime. Well, he got word that there was a doctor with a rare procedure that involved lasers that would allow him to save his daughter. So he went off to find this doctor, and as he found the doctor, he witnessed her being kidnapped. He chased after the car that kidnapped her, and he found himself behind a fence at Cross Technological Enterprises. That was it. He decided to go back to his life of crime and break into the facility. If they had kidnapped the doctor that could cure his daughter, he would do anything in his power to rescue that doctor so he could save his daughter. Now, inside he couldn't find the doctor, but he did discover the suit of Ant-Man, formerly owned by Hank Pym. After messing around with the suit and learning exactly how it worked, he went right back to the facility with an army of ants to save the doctor. He gets around in the facility pretty easily by shrinking and enlarging himself back to his original size, and he eventually shrinks down into a drain so that he can pop up in the surgery ward where they're keeping the doctor. Once inside, he tells her that she needs to come with him in a hurry because he has a little girl who needs her help. But she says she already has a patient and she can't leave. The patient then stands up, and it's a very large red man named Darren Cross, who's now standing in front of Scott. Scott uses his new powers and an army of ants that he has with him in resourceful ways to try and defeat Darren, but since Scott is a new superhero, he fails and he's rendered unconscious. Once Scott eventually wakes up, he finds that surprisingly, he's not been killed or injured. Darren Cross then comes in and applauds his bravado and explains that he is Darren Cross, a man who works too hard and was placing a lot of stress on his heart, to the point of almost having a heart attack. He had an experimental pacemaker placed in his chest that in theory would allow him to keep going at the pace that he enjoys going at when working. Well, the pacemaker enhanced his strength and his perception, but it also had some cosmetic side effects that turned him red and gave him a Cro-Magnon kind of forehead kind of thing. He also discovered that he was burning out his heart because of the pacemaker, so he kidnapped homeless people so he could take their hearts and burn up as many hearts as he needed. And that's why he spared Scott Lang. He didn't want another homeless person's weak heart. This time, he'll have the heart of a superhero. He then locked Scott back in the room and he left. Well, that was his mistake because Scott used the ant helmet to communicate with his army of ants again, and he used them to free himself from the cell. He then moved quickly and got back into fighting with Darren Cross, but this time, Darren eventually succumbed to his own heart failing, and he died, allowing Scott Lang to be the victor. Scott then got the doctor out of the building and they went to go save his daughter. Now, luckily, the doctor was able to save his daughter with her experimental laser technology, and Scott decided that since he stole the Ant-Man uniform, he would turn himself into the authorities. He did enjoy leading a straight and narrow life and not being a criminal again. But that's when Yellow Jacket, aka Hank Pym, showed up and told Scott that he could keep it. Scott stole it for a good cause, and he saved the day, and the world could always use another superhero. And that's it, guys. That's how Scott Lang became Ant-Man. Now, Scott's powers are limited to the ability to shrink and regrow to his current size, and he has a helmet that allows him to talk to ants and such. Now wait, before you go crazy on the comments down below, I do want to explain one more thing about Scott, and we'll be going into a video explaining this just a little bit better soon. But Scott's powers come from the Pym particles, like I said earlier. The Pym particles grant the ability to increase and decrease the mass of objects and living beings by removing matter and accruing it from an alternate dimension. So in theory, Scott Lang can grow larger than his original size. But I did a lot of research and I couldn't find any incident where Scott Lang did that. He only seems to shrink. I only found reports of Henry Pym growing in size and taking the name Giant Man. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments down below, but I'm pretty sure Scott only shrinks. If you learned something new, let us know by giving this video a like, and follow our Twitter at Comicstorian, and let us know in the comments down below what other comic book hero and villains that you're unsure of the origins of so we can wrap them up into our new quickie series, Origins. I'm Benny for Comicstorian, and I'll see you guys next time.